Beyond the harsh textures of reality, there exists a world where even a storm is transformed into an aesthetic grace. Pierre-Auguste Cotte did not merely paint beauty, he engineered a sublime sanctuary where not a single drop of pain is allowed to penetrate. We now take a step into the aesthetics of sequestration concealed within this radiant fiction. The brushstrokes of Cotte filling the canvas go beyond mere smooth depiction. It is more akin to an aesthetic anesthesia, subtly using haptic perception to silence our doubt. In the background, the rough tree trunks and moss reveal the painterly noise he intentionally placed. Yet, the moment the gaze touches the lover's skin, one encounters a texture so exquisitely polished that not a single particle can be perceived. Our brain often triggers a tactile contrast effect. It perceives the smoothness of an object placed next to a rough texture tens of times more intensely. Through this contrast with the background, Cotte has upgraded the flesh of the figures into a supernatural ivory that transcends reality. The audience momentarily perceives the background's rough grain as reality. Then they accept the flawless skin at the center as a fantasy to be reached. Ultimately, they choose the path of dissociation from reality. At this point, we realize that it is not a person we are loving. Cotte has neutralized the unique narratives of the individuals, leaving only the abstract fiction of a state of eros. Who the partner is or what flaws they may have no longer matters. A projection of profound narcissism begins. It worships only the ecstatic elevation felt by me at the moment of falling in love. This is not communication with another, but a psychological imprisonment which locks oneself within the sensory moment of greatest beauty. The smooth skin he presents is not vitality, but closer to an aesthetic preservative born from the fear of extinction. Indeed, that skin, without a single brush mark, reads as an embalmed specimen, vacuum sealed to never decay. And within that flawless fiction, the audience merely indulges in their own desires as if looking into a mirror. The reason the swing has stopped at the zenith of its arc is clear. The moment it descends, the reality called gravity activates. Time begins to flow again, and paradise collapses. Those toes floating a few centimeters above the ground are symbols of Cotte's aesthetic extraterritoriality. The moment one sets foot on the earth, one must face the curses of class-driven pain and the decay of time. Cotte has defied the laws of physics and frozen time to block out this messy truth. Pleasure without descent is sweet, but it is also a beautiful tomb stripped of biological vitality. While pretending to offer us a flutter of excitement, Cotte is, in fact, urging us to flee from the predator called time and be willingly sequestered into the territory of exquisite silence he has built. The real reason we love this painting may be that it is the only fiction that suspends our fall, a place that does not exist in reality. The dynamism that dominates the storm originates, paradoxically, not from perfect depiction, but from the painterly noise that deliberately blurs forms. Looking at the edges of the fluttering golden drapery and the horizon of dark clouds in the background, one finds rough brushstrokes where the trajectory of the brush remains vivid. Our brain's visual cortex reads more vitality from such motion blur effects than from a smooth, static image. These rough textures act like a psychological accelerator, summoning our senses instantly into the scene of the disaster, without giving reason a chance to intervene. Through those blurred strokes, we begin to imagine the speed of the storm, and in that urgency, we become more deeply and emotionally attached to the smooth bodies of the figures being protected. Coarseness, in effect, is the most powerful engine that drives the illusion. However, this storm is by no means a natural disaster that threatens the figures. The disaster on the screen provides a perfect psychological alibi for the two lovers to physically cling to each other, creating a daring pretext for the audience to hide deeper within this beautiful fiction. Despite the urgent situation of the swirling gale and rain, the woman's white dress clings to her skin, translucent and without a single speck of soil. This is not a reproduction of a meteorological phenomenon, but closer to a meticulous choreography calculated to maximize the sensuality of the figure. Cott has incorporated even the storm into his own aesthetic order, reimagining it as a luminous reflector that purposefully highlights the radiant presence of the protagonists. In this meticulously arranged chaos, where even crisis serves an aesthetic purpose, we are not merely observing a disaster, but experiencing a refined sense of immersion through the deliberate filter of the storm. The storm offers the audience a reason for an aesthetic immersion. It is an invitation, a command. While the world may be rough and unpredictable, find a sanctuary within the embrace of this radiant fiction. The contrast Cott painted between the shining human bodies and the coarse background solidifies a sophisticated dichotomy. The reality of the storm remains untamed, while the world of art, the lovers, remains eternally radiant. Ultimately, this work is not merely a painting of lovers in flight from a storm, but a psychological sanctuary designed to lead the audience's gaze into a timeless beauty. We find a sense of peace in looking at the smooth skin that remains untouched by the gale, choosing to be willingly sequestered within the aesthetics of Cott's pure orchestrated disaster. The greatness of Pierre-Auguste Cott lies in his ability to construct a perfect space of dissociation from the coarse fragments of reality. He did not deceive us. He merely filtered out every messy variable of the world to protect the integrity of the fiction we so deeply desired. We are still swaying on the swing of love, dreaming of an eternal fiction, choosing to be sequestered within this territory of exquisite silence, rather than returning to the cold truth of the earth. What began as a love for a person ends with the worship of love as a perfect illusion itself. Perhaps this radiant sequestration is the most beautiful yet chilling gift Cott has ever offered us.